welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, the only show on Indian television where you, the MSME, get center stage. This is ET Now special daily initiative to give MSMEs and entrepreneurs the opportunity to be front and center on every industry and area that matters to you. Tonight, we're bringing you the most comprehensive analysis of the budget for you, the MSME entrepreneur, and joining us to decode the fine print of the budget. First up, I want to introduce Akshay Kenkre. He's managing partner of TransPrice Solutions. We also have with us tonight Vishal, Thakkar, Director SME Consulting and Co-Founder, ConTeTra Universal. Gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time out to be here tonight to talk about some of the biggest changes that we've seen out of the budget, but specifically, of course, talking about the impact and how life is going to change for MSMEs. And I want to start with the big headline, the reduction as far as the corporate income tax level is concerned for MSMEs. Akshay, when we met with you for a pre-budget panel, that was one of the things you said you would like to say. I want to ask both of you gentlemen, are you happy with what has been announced? Would you have liked to see more, perhaps maybe more companies coming under the net?
Okay, while last time I was here, I mentioned specifically that 25% rate across the industry should be really important step from a government perspective. But what government has really done is it has chosen between equality and equity, and chosen equity really to say that to certain extent, say 250 crores of gross revenue whenever you have as a company for 2017, those companies can really look at a 25% corporate rate tax, while other companies which are more than 250 crores will still enjoy the current rate of taxes, which is higher. Now, having said that, it is important to note that companies to the extent of 250 crores of revenue are to the extent of 99%, which means the government is only leaving 1% companies out in quantitative terms, not in terms of absolute figures, but 1% companies out which could contribute to a higher rate of tax. So that brings in the equity in the entire system. Now, having said that, again, earlier this particular limit was 50 crores and this limit has been increased to 250 crores. So it is a really great and good leap in terms of figures to give an exemption to the companies with a reduced corporate rate tax, and completely I think it's line in terms of expectations. Okay,
would you agree? In line with expectations, would you have liked to see more perhaps?
Well, I feel that this budget is more of a mixed bag, where we can say that it's more of an under the hood budget, wherein government has maintained the status quo right at the top, but have made those changes in the underlying variables to make sure that government does not end up over promising and under delivering. Plus, the philosophy here has been that government did not go the populist way, however have still chosen some amount of popularity by playing a very balancing act. While we say that all of this will result into a more open economy or ease of doing business will come in, however, we are yet to see a formidable plan from the government side as to whatever they have declared, what would be the roadmap of implementation. And in terms of personal income tax or benefit for the individuals, yes, a little more was expected, but however, we can say that it's not a complete disappointment as well.
All right, so we've started this panel on a very positive note, not a complete disappointment, you're saying, in line with expectations, you're saying. I want to talk about another key issue which most MSMEs tell us all the time, and that's as far as employment generation. There has been an announcement from the government. The PM Employment Generation Program outlays increased to 1,800 crores with an establishment of nearly 88,000 micro enterprises, largely in the non-farm sector. Good news, while the government has of course announced a lot of SOPs, we can want to call it that, for the farm space, non-farm hasn't been left out. Do you think this is enough, especially since we talk so often on the show, Vishal, about skilling and Skill India, Digital India, etc. Do you think there's been enough focus then on job and job creation?
Okay, so here we need to understand things from a broader perspective. The ideology of government here has been that the India that we envisage does not restrict itself to the corridors of Delhi and Mumbai. There is a vast space which is still kind of left behind, and what government is focusing is on the holistic development of entire country. So be it you are in Mumbai or be it you are in the remotest part of northeastern states, the basics which we say are given, like high-speed internet connectivity, opening of bank accounts, access to clean water, access to education, access to jobs, is something which government is trying to equalize. And what in the process government has started since 2014 and which they have kind of reaffirmed in this budget is a continuous focus on bridging this gap and broadening the base. So the spirit of this budget is that, okay, while in my personal opinion, we could say there could have been more soaps for people in Mumbai and Delhi or the high-end corporate setups, but what government has instead done is has focused on the rest of the country and made sure that these benefits are broadly spread out. So yes, definitely, when we see grassroots level changes, and I would just quote one example that the security watchman of my building was doing a video call with his friend in his village. So we see that yes, now at least we are seeing the considerable change happening at the grassroots level. So the impact, however minimal, we see the green shoots coming out.
You have something to add as far as job creation is concerned to what Vishal had to say?
Yes, so basically one has to look at what do we mean by job creation. Job creation is a very long-term haul. So what you have to do is we have to first create industries and then create jobs for people. So that's one way of looking at it. So when you talk of job creation, is also an entrepreneurship creation. So all that is included in the job creation, especially if you talk of an income tax shops on job creation, specific to the extent of apparel and footwear and leather industry. What they have done is they have extended the benefit of 80JJAA, which is a specific deduction section where a particular company can get 30% additional deduction on every new employment it has. More importantly, for these three industries, the minimum period of 240 days has been reduced from 240 to 150 now. So that's another boost given to an industry from a job creation perspective. So I see even from a job creation in budget, it's quite well balanced.
It's definitely good news for employees when it comes to the PPF contribution. But for companies which are watching our show, while there may not be too much of a distinction, like you're saying, between the company as well as the people it employs, is it good news as well? Is there going to be a bit of a hit?
Well, if we look at it this way, that today the culture of employment has moved to such a level that initially, yes, companies would have to take some bit of cash flow hit, but then in the longer run, it will yield more benefits to them in terms of creating a more productive workforce. Because for a person, it is very important to have a financial security when he is working. And especially in terms of Provident Fund, a very welcome step done for women empowerment also is a great thing,
Okay. Akshay, you were talking earlier about how the economy also needs to be developed. Yes, it's great that job creation is being looked at. It looks like the GDP forecast is that we're not going to be meeting the GDP for this year, and next year as well. We perhaps are going to be looking at a different rate than what was being projected. A large part of which the government is saying is because of GST and the GST rollout. So I want to talk about GST. Has been a big move, has been a big impact. The first budget after the GST introduction. Any surprises there? Any sort of comments in terms of what's going to be then the impact on small businesses?
So when it comes to GST, since the GST rolled out happened last July, so in terms of surprises, there are not many surprises in this budget. GST is just being reaffirmed as a constitutional amendment in this particular budget, because erstwhile government was habituated to make taxation reforms only budget to budget. But we see that government this year has done holistic reforms in the indirect tax side. If we keep aside for a moment the challenges that we are facing in implementation of GST, but if we see that the numbers of GST collection has been steadily rising. Of course, the numbers will take some time before they reach the original numbers of what excise and other taxes used to contribute, because we are still in the transition phase.
We've spoken about job creation and job opportunities, and that's something we talk about very often on Leaders of Tomorrow. The second big thing, of course, is financing and fundraising for small businesses. The government has taken cognizance of what is happening in the economy, lending by banks, etc. The credit guarantee scheme has been increased to 7,500 crores from the existing 2,500 crores. But I want us to look holistically at what's happening in the economy and say, is this perhaps enough? Will we see a funding boost coming back to small businesses? Also, given the refinancing which is happening, which has already taken place, in fact, of public sector banks, is this perhaps enough?
So basically, right now what's going to happen is the government will be focusing a lot in divesting big public sector companies, and the money coming out of that, it's going to route into various credits that it would like to lend out to remonetize an entire credit system at this point of time, and also look at GST and also look at direct tax collections. And that's the reason why the direct tax collections even for individuals have really not gone down, because of the widening of tax nets. So all put together, what it is going to do is that it's going to channelize all that money coming from the divestments and the taxation into the credits of micro and small and medium enterprises, and make credits freely available to these people so that they can again contribute back in the economy by again creating employment, or maybe having more products, make in India, or maybe supporting make in India. So all those things would really come in when we talk of credits and maybe increase in credit line in India.
Gentlemen, do hold that thought. We'll take a very quick break, but we will continue decoding the budget for the MSME entrepreneur on the other side. Just stay tuned. Welcome back. You're with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow, and tonight we're breaking down the impact and the benefits of the budget for the MSME entrepreneur. We've spoken about the kind of impact, benefits, etc. that we've seen out of the budget specifically for MSMEs. I want to talk slightly big picture. And Akshay, when we had you last on the show, as far as expectations from the budget is concerned, the one thing that we did speak about was long-term capital gains tax. Your comments, happy? Would you like to see more? Would you like to see something different?
So I think first of all, it is in the right direction of getting a long-term capital gain tax in, because there has been a grandfathering provision. Now, when I said on the budget, if you get a long-term capital gains as it is, that would have been a trouble. But if you see markets today, it's falling down because of buying pressures. But be rest assured that till 31st March 2018, there would not be any tax on long-term capital gains on listed securities. That's very clear now. Now, what the government has in effect done is, the market value of that particular share, which is on 31st January 2018, has been grandfathered, which means your cost of acquisition can be your cost of acquisition before 31st of January, what you have purchased, or on 31st of January, whichever is more. So you already have a deemed gain, if at all, when you are selling post 1st April 2018, which is already built in and which is already exempt. So any gains that you are making post 31st January 2018, what government is saying is, we don't expect you to get an indexation on it, or maybe an increased cost of acquisition, but what we expect is a 10% on that. So assume you have derived 27% of profit over the last few years on long-term capital gains, and 20% has been grandfathered. 7% profit is what you have, and out of that 0.7% of tax on that 7% profits is not going to be a huge chunk. So look at the effective tax rate of a long-term capital gains, 0.7 on a 27%. So it's going to be really very small amount. So from my perspective, it's a good aspect that long-term capital gains have come in the right direction, especially when you should not really, or maybe an investor should not look at long-term capital gains or a tax aspect to invest in India, but should look at the growth potential from from an India perspective really invest in India. So it will weather out in few months.
You're making an interesting point as far as investments concerned. Vishal, maybe you could comment on this. It's feared that investments into India could be hit, especially since the securities transaction tax is also not being done away with, along with, of course, the announcement on the long-term capital gains.
The broader issue is that I share a different view from Akshay, that long-term capital gains tax has been a spoiler to the entire budget. I feel that government is taking a U-turn from what the finance minister had just announced last year, that he will not bring in long-term capital gains tax, especially when you are already taxing every transaction that is already happening on the stock market. This kind of shakes the fear, the faith that we have in the capital markets, because I don't see any other reason apart from boosting the revenue from the direct tax per se for introducing this kind of long-term capital gains tax, especially when all other reforms of the government, like introduction of GST, introduction of international reporting standards, are in the direction of bringing in foreign funds.
Business, yes.
Suddenly bringing in a long-term capital gain tax is a spoiler in the whole picture.
So opinions are definitely divided on that. As you're winding down, the couple of more things that I definitely want to talk about. One is, the so-called gift tax and the income from that and the impact that it's likely to have, particularly on MSMEs. Would you gentlemen want to comment?
So particularly in 2017, there was this new provision which came in, which is section 56 to 10. Okay. Now this provision, which was earlier applicable only to individuals and HUF, was now extended to all persons, saying that any particular asset or any income has been transferred to other person without adequate consideration, then the other person receiving such income or a particular asset would be taxed as income from other sources. Now what happened in this is it took away and made a confusion in terms of exemption which was existing in section 47, where the definition of transfer or not, there are some things where transfer is not considered for capital gains. There was a confusion between that. So now those exemption between subsidiary and the parent company, and any transfer between parent company to a subsidiary company, has been specifically incorporated in 56 to 10. To say that any transfer would not be taxable, and this was necessary because in MSME there could be certain transfers made internally for other than because a family owned business, and there are transferred between a parent company and a subsidiary company, and that has already paid tax on. So all those transfer needed to be outside the loop, and that's what the government has brought in the light clarificatory amendment right now.
Sure. Vishal, my question to you, there have been some other announcements, including of course the cess as far as the boost towards education is concerned. There's also of course the insurance that's being, the announcement as far as insurance is concerned for 10 crore poor and vulnerable families. My question to you, is this going to create enough job opportunities for MSMEs that are perhaps looking at this space? What kind of opportunities is this going to create? Yes, on one hand, it's going to benefit a lot of people, but specifically in terms of the opportunities for companies.
Now there are two sides to this whole thing that has happened. One is that there have been three big announcements in terms of, after Swachh Bharat we have Swasth Bharat, and also we have Ayushman Bharat, where we talk about the schemes that you just mentioned. The announcements have been very, very big, but what is lacking, or what we are yet to see, is a clear roadmap and allocation of funds in this direction, and how the whole thing will be rolled out. So that is something which we are yet to see from the government, that does it turn out to be just another promise per se, or government is really going to deliver it.
But the outlay as far as education is concerned still hasn't increased all that much. The cess may have increased here.
So it's just 2.7% increase in the outlay, whereas the cess and the she cess, as we call it, the second higher education cess, has gone up to 4%. So all this is we are still seeing it on paper. We are yet to see the benefits coming out of it. But however, one good thing which I would like to point out, which government has done, is in the education space, government is now saying that we would like to train the teachers. because where that's where the source of the broader education would come. And they are saying moving from the blackboard to the digital board, and they have come up with this program called Diksha, where they are creating an e-platform for the teachers to upgrade themselves. And if you look at it, they have extended this whole e-platform not only to educating the teachers but across courts. For all the government regulations, 16,000 high courts and subordinate courts put together would now become paperless, and all the government machinery would now operate from cloud.
My last question to you, gentlemen, very quickly, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the budget? Even as the central government has tried to bridge the gap between what's happening in urban India and Bharat or rural India, there's been a lot of focus on rural India, rural development, of course, but would you say this has been a popular budget, a populist budget, an election-oriented budget? How would you rate it? Let me come to you first.
Okay, so on a scale of 10, I would rate this budget as 7 on 10. As government has shown its commitments towards the longer project, I would not call this a populist budget, but a popular budget, simply because government for the first time has not taken a myopic view by robbing the resources of long-term projects and create populist schemes just to win elections in the coming year. So that shows government's commitments towards the longer-term project. However, government did still left a lot of room for improvement for larger corporate sectors, and also came up with certain impediments like long-term capital gain tax, which in my view were not required at this point in time.
Sure. Would you agree?
Not completely, but I think it's a very balanced view that the government has taken, and I would rate this budget somewhere at 9 on 10. 1% is only for not doing anything for a common man at this point of time, but otherwise the government has focused on the agriculture sector, agriculture productivity, because 60% of our citizens are still dependent on agriculture, right? So agriculture productivity, agriculture infrastructure, government has also focused on the infrastructure development, government has focused on employment, most importantly healthcare, government has focused on insurance. So it has really focused on all those sectors which it had to, and that's the reason why I'm giving government a 9 on 10 at this point of time. So from my point of view, it was really balanced budget, and yeah, it's a win-win for everybody.
All right, gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us to be able to help our MSME viewers understand really the impact of the budget. That's our show tonight. If you have any feedback for us, we love hearing from you. You can always write in to us at leadersoftomorrowtimesgroup.com. On social media, tweet at me at Sunanda_J or LOT_ET Now. You can also reach us on our Facebook page, Leaders of Tomorrow on ET Now. Thanks very much for watching. Have a good night.